From booth number 605, I'm Rhiannon Branch with Brownfield, and joined with me in the Illinois Corn and Soy Tent is Jim Reed, U.S. Grains Council Board of Directors. You are on and representing Illinois Corn here on this panel. And then we have Scott Gaffner, who is an at-large director for the Illinois Soybean Association. How are you guys doing today?
Good, very good.
I mean, we picked this day specific because of the weather, so thanks for letting us
Right,
come
and
on
you
this
you
beautiful
dialed
day.
it up perfect, so we really appreciate that. Well, you guys are going to talk a little bit about trade. You get one of the big topics today, so we'll dive right in. It might seem obvious, but why is trade such an important topic for your organizations?
Okay, for corn, I mean it's we half of the corn grown in Illinois gets exported outside the state, and a significant amount of that gets exported out of the country. So trade and trade relationships are very important to the profitability of the farmers in Illinois and actually in the whole country. So trade is something we're always going to focus on. We do, of course, focus on domestic markets also, but there's a lot more people outside of Illinois than inside Illinois, so trade's huge.
And that's the same thing. We follow suit. It's 60% soybeans are exported. Trade is so important and vital, and that's why we do so many trade missions as well. We visit the other countries. We talk to buyers. We find out what they need and what they want from our soy production, and so hopefully we can try to target that even more in the future. Higher protein content, higher oil content. So essential, just like the corn is, that we just have these trade partners going forward.
What are some of the top priorities when it comes to trade for you guys? Any certain markets that you're pursuing right now?
We've just had several trade missions with Japan, and we've really expanded the ethanol opportunities there. India is a huge market, potential growth, the African continent, and then our traditional trade partners with Canada, Mexico, we continue on and exports because transportation being closer, it lowers our carbon footprint and makes us a reliable supplier.
Yeah, and I would agree with many of those. We've been in the area of Egypt. We met with them recently. They're a larger buyer of our soybeans. We're working in the Southeast Asia corridor. Aquaculture is becoming very prominent as well, so we're trying to formulate the aquaculture feed to be more conducive with soybeans, bring that protein content in there. So we're just exploring Africa at this point in time. So there's so many areas and opportunities that we have, whether it's the emerging markets or the developed markets. And so we're so excited about it because so many people are interested in what we have. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about just why they're interested, because we're reliable and getting our products to them as well.
Definitely. Well, I first want to touch on, Jim, you mentioned Mexico, and I know Brownfield's talked with some Illinois white corn farmers here a couple of times this year regarding the trade dispute there with Mexico. Any progress there that you want to touch on?
Well, the latest update is that, of course, the trade representative from the U.S. filed a formal grievance. And so kind of the steps that come after that is they will convene a panel to be the arbitrator of the dispute. Right now, they're in the process of picking the panel and who the experts will be that'll be on that. So we've got a little bit of it. Looks like not much is happening, but it is. And, there is a time limit on when they have to respond, but they can agree to extend that. So we're hoping that, dialogue is still going on. Definitely, we are very concerned about this and the disruption it has caused. But we are committed to staying in it to a successful resolution.
Scott, I know that's a corn question, but a lot of your members are corn and soybean farmers. Is that something you're following?
We probably don't follow it as closely because we want to make sure we're advocating the soybean aspect, but absolutely, we're just as concerned about what happens with the corn because we rotate that corn rotation in here just as much. So, thank you for the Grains Council keeping a tab on that in the corn. So we appreciate that.
Definitely. Well, like you mentioned, exports to other countries, they don't just happen. There's other pieces that are important for powering trade, transportation, relationships. Dive into that aspect for us. What's important there? What do we have?
Yeah, and I'll touch on that just briefly too, because the unique thing about Illinois is we have such a great infrastructure, and that's what sets us apart from so many other competitors that we may have that grow the corn and soybeans, is the reliability of getting that product to our buyers. We have the great waterways, we have the great roadways, and we have the great railways. So all those things are helping whenever we meet with some of our buyers, like we were recently in Egypt. And when we talked to them about the benefits of U.S. soy, they talked about, hey, sometimes we look at the difference on price. We look at the soybean oil content or the protein content. But what sets you apart is your ability to get that product to us whenever we need it. If we order it, we know it'll be here. And so that's the thing we continue to work on, the locks and dams, which are so essential for us. And a lot of the funding that's come through has benefited not only us, but sending our commodities down the river. So very integral, and that's what's keeping us set above some of these other competitors that we have.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that here we sit in Decatur, Illinois. We have three Class A railroads that intersect here. It makes this part of the country very unique in being able to fit that export demand and the reliability of getting it to the water ports. We just helped create the inland port system so that we can secure better funding for the river ports throughout the river system here in the U.S. So having that infrastructure is hugely important. Having those trade teams here, and then also trying to assist the buyers in other countries understand the value and the quality of our product. We just finished a research project with Dr. Vijay Sai. We were getting complaints about how our corn looked compared to, say, some of those countries that grow flint corn. So we went in and we did a analysis for our corn and showed them that even though we look a little different and it may have a little more cracks, some of those grinders can make $1 million a year more money by buying the consistent U.S. product than what they visually think was better in other countries. And we also had like 4 different teams that went to Japan this year, and we made huge progress. Japan had limited the U.S. imports of ethanol to only 40%. And through the negotiations and discussions with them, we've opened that up now for 100% access to that market. We also got the some initiatives that some stations are starting to do direct blending instead of blending with ETBE. So that's just a huge market to open up and a big trading partner with us. So sending teams out there that can see what their needs are and then having them here to understand when they come to Illinois and they see the cornfields and the bean fields and our production and our good roads, it gives them a very high level of confidence on our ability to meet their demands.
That was actually going to be my next talking point, was trade teams. And, we talk a lot about going in country, but, having those folks here is important too. Scott, anything else to add on that?
Well, I think when we develop those relationships, it develops that trust factor there. When we go to their countries and we talk to them, they are so pleased that we come there, that we see how they are developing, if there's anything we can help them with. And one of the things that we've done too is we've partnered with the United Soybean Export Council with the Soy Excellence Centers. And it's an opportunity to take training centers within their countries to make them better at utilizing our soybeans more effectively within whether they're or whatever they're doing for the poultry, aquaculture, whatever. And this has been such a great return on our dollar, because then it makes them avid supporters of U.S. soybean to be able to use in their consumption. So those are the kind of things, when we go there, they see us there, we have that relationship with them, they trust us, and they know we'll get them the quantity and quality of product in a timely manner. So hopefully that continues to move forward for us.
Scott, you mentioned the U.S. Soybean Export Council. Can you guys touch on some of the other groups that you work with when it comes to trade?
Yeah, I'll reach out to all the livestock groups in the country, U.S. Meat Export Federation, USAPEC, the egg and poultry groups. Working with the livestock industry and the ethanol groups gives us just this huge opportunity for value added. And that's great. If we can have the jobs here and do the processing here and export a finished product, that's just a big gain to our economy here in the U.S. So we try to work with anyone that has a corn product that they produce and they'd like to export.
Yeah, and the other one we use is WISH, which is the I forgot what the acronym.
Yeah, World Initiative.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, and soy and it's human consumption and human health. So
yes,
it's basically utilizing soy for human health. And so we have so many acronyms sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm like, they get it messed up. But they are looking at emerging markets. And so once we have those markets past that emerging point, then we'll go to USEC and the developing markets to help sustain and keep that flow going for the soybeans. So we partner with a lot of the same partners that Carn does, USAPEC, all these other partners are ours as well, because they are consuming a lot of soybeans. And so that's why we're here together. The partnership is really a partnership that only makes sense for corn and soybean be together. in this venue with the Farm Progress Show. So I think this is just a great setting.
Definitely. So when it comes to trade, and this could be a certain country or a certain aspect that you want to touch on, but for individually for soybean, for corn, what would you say is the biggest recent win in the trade space for you guys?
Wow, I mean, you're asking to narrow down a win when we're looking at, well, China's been kind of a win because they've increased their consumption levels with us, but yet when we look at wins, we're actually looking at how can we can make more of an opportunity available to other countries and buyers. We want to not be so beholden to one buyer, of course, in case something happens. But so those are the things with African continent, with the Southeast Asia area. We're all developing more partnerships with those areas that are going to be more beneficial for our farmers, whether they're corn and soybeans. So that's what we're looking at. Really not one big win, but multiple wins that we're really creating right now.
I mentioned a while ago Japan, and Japan's a big win for us in the last year. But we're looking for other opportunities like that. India, which primarily only uses ethanol for an industrial use, as we're working with them as they want to now get to it a fuel use and as a cleaner advocate to clean up the smog within their country. So there's a huge opportunity there. But we also look at some smaller markets. The percentage growth in Jamaica has been huge because they've decided they're going to start using ethanol. They're going to import it, and they're going to clean up the air and do better with their production there. So, we don't want to ignore any market. We want to make every opportunity. Grains Council, we have 21 offices around the country, various regions that we serve, and so we're always looking for new opportunities in each of those.
I think the final question I want to ask here before we switch you guys out for the next set of speakers is just harvest is right around the corner. So I guess looking at this year's crop, are Illinois, the U.S., are we well positioned to be the consistent trading partner for corn and soy that we have been the past few years?
In our area, I mean, we've got a decent crop, not a great crop, not near as good as last year, which for us was record. We had record corn yields in this area because I'm from really right outside of Decatur here. But I think from the surveys we've done and talking to our members, we're going to be really close to our APH or average production history. So I think we will again have a dependable crop.
And that's a good response because in so many different areas of the state, we're seeing just like the rain that came through. It's just a band of rain. And so not everybody's getting the same amount of moisture. And we are going to be at the top at the record levels. We're pretty good. We just got the rains at the time we needed it. But we're going to see some off yields probably this year as well.
All right. Jim, Scott, thank you guys so much for your time. I'll let you step aside here as we bring on a few other folks. Again, we are live from the Progress Show here in Decatur, booth number 605 with the Illinois Soybean Association and Illinois Corn Growers Association. Welcoming a couple of new speakers here to the podium. We are going to talk a little bit more today about the Precision Conservation Management Program. And thus we have Megan Miller with ISA. She's the Agronomy Programs Manager. And we have Greg Goodwin, who is the Precision Conservation Management representing Illinois Corn for us today. How's it going?
Really well. Happy to be here.
Yeah, going well. Lucky.
We did, yes. So we're not sweating and we're not cold. So I'd say that's a good Farm Progress show.
Yes.
Well, on this topic, conservation, environment, climate change, sustainability, those are a bunch of the current, buzzwords for the next generation that we're seeing. How are farmers kind of meeting the demand and proving their commitment to these values?
Yeah, I can start with that. So through Illinois Corn and Illinois Soybean, we do have the Precision Conservation Management Program, which allows to try these practices for the first time and understand how the economics are going to change on their farm. So they're trying different practices. They're also on their agronomists and different farm practitioners they work with to help them navigate that. It's a pretty big paradigm shift for farm. So working with a trusted agronomist, conservation person is a really good way to kind of navigate what all those words mean for your farm. So,
yeah, just to add to that, there's a long way to go for agriculture. We've got a lot of folks that are still conventional in their methodology, and we've got a lot of ways. But generally, I mean, they're firsthand the best stewards of their land, and they want to leave it better than they found it for the next generation, and keep farming the land and to help them navigate how they go about that, make sure the decisions they make are right for their business, and keep all the inputs that they're spending a lot of money to use in their production methods to be viable and utilized by the crop, not ending up in the ditch or the stream and things like that. So.
Definitely. Well, I guess before we go any further, most folks or some are familiar with the Precision Conservation Management Program. It's been around for a few years, but I guess I'd have you both kind of highlight what the program is, what it's all about for those who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah.
Sure. So I can maybe start there, but the program was started by Illinois Corn back in the 2015 timeframe, launched through a regional conservation partnership program grant through the NRCS, and then as of 2020, the Illinois Soybean Association came on as an equal funding partner to it. As Megan described a little bit ago, but essentially is to try to help farmers understand the economics behind in-field conservation decisions on their farm. And so, understanding what the economics are of cover crops as it relates to corn and soybean production and wheat production. And we're starting to add some additional crops as well. But basically we have one-on-one conservation specialists who go out, work with farmers directly, help collect their management information. We run that through an economic cost model as well as a sustainability calculator. And it sort of acts as a benchmarking system so they can see how they compare to themselves in time at the field level, and then how they compare to others in the program in an anonymized, aggregated way. So basically they get to benchmark themselves against other farmers regionally and at the state level, and this just kind of helps them add comfort as they address the risk of adopting new practices.
That was a great synopsis. Megan, in your mind, what would you say is the biggest benefit of the PCM program for Illinois farmers?
Yeah, so definitely the conservation specialists, having a third-party person out there that can help you adopt these practices that isn't attached to your seed dealer or your fertilizer company is really critical. And then the PCM staff is also really good at about applying for grant money and working with different end users to try to get money for farmers for implementing these conservation practices. They work a lot with different partners trying to negotiate on behalf of the farmer. So,
well, help us understand some of the partners that PCM is working with. I see NASA, Walmart. Those sound like a pretty big deal.
Absolutely, yes. So not long after the program was spawned up, PCM started doing pilot programming with PepsiCo, basically working in different pockets of the state, kind of trying to help farmers try these practices out in exchange for an incentive to do so. And PepsiCo is looking at this opportunity as a way to start sustainability, and now has really scaled that up. Walmart has now come on as an equal funding collaborator throughout Illinois and some other areas as well, working with us and a couple other farmer-facing programs also. But I think it sends a really strong signal to the rest of the marketplace as far as folks using commodities in their goods, and really just, I think they're a forerunner as far as sustainability programming goes in this space.
PCM's also partnered with Farmers for Soil Health to provide incentive payments for cover cropping for the next 3 to 4 years, as well as field to market. So really trying to partner with both private and public opportunities to get the most dollars for farmers.
So when it comes to the conservation space, what are some things that Illinois farmers should be watching out for here in the next few years?
Definitely all the different programming around climate smart commodities programs and others as they try to scale up. The federal government has now helped inject over $3 billion into this space, and even more so through the Inflation Reduction Act, through traditional federal programs. And so there's going to be an opportunity that fits your operation pretty much no matter what you're doing. I mean, we were talking about this before, but you can look around at the breadth of the show we're at right now, the Farm Progress Show, and see all the different things that are out there and different types of operations that are out there. And I think no matter what you're doing, there's going to be something that can help move you to that next level as far as conservation and sustainability programs go. and so yeah, there's just a wealth of opportunities out there.
And it's always important before you enroll in any of these programs to understand what the conservation goals are for your individual operation. Are you trying to reduce runoff? Are you trying to reduce erosion? As Greg said, there's definitely a program for you, but lead with your personal conservation goal before you enroll.
Definitely. So can the PCM program, we talked about these buzzwords earlier, and of course the general public is familiar with those too. Can this program kind of help position farmers to better answer questions, from the public or lawmakers or customers on this topic?
Yeah, for sure. So part of enrolling in PCM is sharing your farm data, which Greg said is aggregated and anonymized, but this does show the good work that farmers are doing. And because we as PCM staff members are meeting with legislators and end users, we are really trying to show the progress that farmers are making, and then also translate the other way and let them know what the end users need as well.
Yeah. Anything to add?
Echo what Megan said. Yeah, I think, again, a staple of it is understanding the on-farm economics, and it also helps us be very transparent about the gap farmers do need to make up. And so when we're talking about conservation incentives and things like that, we can also, use this to educate lawmakers and those folks on, okay, we're asking farmers to do this, but here's what it's costing them. And so we're able to shine a very transparent light on that.
You guys have mentioned one of the benefits is some of the, one-on-one guidance offered through the program. Can you each maybe give an example of, something that's offered, or maybe a story of where, a farmer has been able to utilize that one-on-one guidance?
I would say now more than ever, it's helping navigate the different conservation funding opportunities that are out there for them. That is just one facet, but we do feel like we're entering a stage of it's going to be very easy for people to have information overload and just not understand, what they do or don't qualify for, depending on where they're at in their conservation practice journey, whether they've been doing something for a while or they're new to it. And so us digesting that so we can make that message clear and concise for the farmer is super important. And I think that's going to be a huge role we play in the next 5 years as we meet new folks that are interested in trying these things.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. PCM has done a lot of work with the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership to create some resources to help both the specialists and the farmers understand the opportunities that are available to them. So
I would also just add, in addition, we have an amazing network of resources. So we don't pretend to be experts on every facet of agronomy and, farm economics and everything. We try to, bridge the gap on a lot of different things. But we have an amazing network, and we can point you to an expert or materials that are going to be the right resource for you if you're looking to do this stuff.
So PCM was partially created to kind of tie into the nutrient loss reduction strategy. Can you guys kind of update us on how it continues to focus on the goals and commitments of that strategy and tie in with it?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I would say that is absolutely why it was, designed to what it was designed to address, and basically to help get farmers moving in that direction. Again, using economics as the way to bridge that gap with farmers and help them understand the economics as they do this stuff and ease that part of the risk for them. I think, that we need to look at this new funding, even though a lot of it is geared towards sequestering carbon and things, as all having amazing synergy with the water quality goals that we launched the program with. And so all the stuff that we're asking farmers to do that are going to have a carbon benefit, even though that's maybe the main goal for a lot of the different folks involved, all of these things also have a water quality benefit as well. And so we're trying to leverage that synergy to get as many acres under these management practices as we can.
Megan?
Yeah. So as Greg mentioned, there are a lot of synergies between the practices. So reducing your tillage is an accepted practice for the nutrient loss reduction strategy. Adding a cover crop is an accepted practice, as well as reducing your nitrogen. And these are all things we provide education and incentives for in the PCM program. So,
Greg, you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but can you talk about, is there a competition aspect to PCM, a drive to do better because you can kind of compare what you're doing to some others and have that, ability to look at how you're doing in comparison to some other folks?
I think that can absolutely be a facet. And I think it's also just, being able to show folks again, when we compare economics, and one thing we do with the PCM data set every year is look at the top 25% of most profitable farmers and see what they're doing. And as we start to see more and more of that aggregate become no-till farmers or really light tillage farmers, it helps us ask the question, well, why is it you're doing multiple passes of tillage, and especially intense tillage? And we see that, like, a really, really tiny fraction of the top 25% of the most profitable farmers are doing 2+ passes of tillage. So it helps us really plant that question in their mind and maybe challenge their, conventional thinking on that, and just helps us start to bridge that gap and think about that stuff more.
Megan, have you seen any soybean farmers kind of tie into that aspect of the program?
Oh, yes, for sure. The PCM data does a really good job categorizing both soybean and corn profitability on farm. And I know our farmers really value being able to see those return on investment benchmarks for soy and understand how that'll impact their operation. Soybeans respond pretty well if a cover crop has been planted before them. And so we often recommend you start cover cropping before soy. Just because it needs a bit less management than starting before your corn crop. So,
all right. Well, my final question here, just to kind of wrap things up, I guess, whether it be the Precision Conservation Management Program or just implementing conservation practices in general, talk to us a little bit about where farmers can learn more from your organizations on that topic if they're interested.
Yeah, so for information about conservation, I definitely recommend everyone check out illsoyadvisor.com. We have information about the carbon markets up there. We have information about all these practices up there. And we also have some pretty good conservation agronomists on our team that would love to be able to come out and help you. So,
yeah, and you can visit PCM's website at precisionconservation.org, and you can get to that straight through that website or through the Illinois Corn website as well.
Very good. Well, Megan and Greg, I appreciate your time this afternoon. That'll wrap things up for this segment, and we will see everyone back here at 1 o'clock, the 2023 Farm Progress Show from booth 605 for our next chat with Illinois